Welcome to Your Story, His Glory with Janelle Berker. Today we are going to speak with Victor and PJ Tucker. This is part 2, so if you have not heard part 1, go back and listen to that. You can get to know Victor, and we're going to build off of his story and the things that he had shared. But we get to learn a little bit more about his lovely wife, PJ, and we get to meet her this morning and find out exactly how she has been transformed by knowing Jesus. Welcome, PJ and Victor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so glad to have you and for your willingness to come and share your stories and the hardships and the tough places that you've walked in your life, and how that you've leaned on Jesus through it. So will you give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself?
Yes. Well, I grew up in California on an Indian reservation. I'm not American Indian, but my parents both worked on the reservation. So I was there until I was about 13 years old. And I, unlike my husband, have one sibling who's gone on to glory now. Um, and I went to, even though I was not on the reservation living after I was about 13, I continued to go to high school there. And I married the boy next door. And we were married for 7 or 8 years. And I have 2 beautiful daughters. And then disaster happened in my marriage, and I was a single parent for several years before I met Victor.
Okay, nice. So I do have a quick clarification. Was your first husband Indian?
No, he was not. He
Okay.
was the only blonde boy I knew for quite a while, which is interesting. And what I didn't say that I meant to say was that growing up, I did go to church when I was very young because my mother was a Christian, but my father was not. He was agnostic. And for those who might not know what that means, is he just didn't know what was true or not true. And so to honor my father, we didn't talk about Christ at home very often. And so by the time I was in high school, I had stopped going to church, and my mother wasn't going to church either.
That makes it very difficult
Mhm.
to live out your faith for sure,
Yes.
and really understand what that means
Yes.
in a household like that.
Mhm.
So, all right, let's just jump in. And I am interested in the marriage portion of your first marriage. So,
Okay.
how long were you married to your first husband?
I was married for 8 years.
Okay.
8 volatile years. Yes, my husband was not a Christian either. And so we did not see anything the same way. And there's a reason why God says to be equally yoked. I discovered very early on. And for those who might not know this, God says all of these things in His Word for our sake, to protect us from being hurt. He's the ultimate daddy for sure.
Yeah. I love that. So, how did you come to know the Lord?
Well, I think I was about 5 years old, and I was attending a church one evening, a revival service, I believe. And I had, of course, by that time, even though I was only 5 years old, I did know who Jesus was. And there was a young lady who accepted Christ in a very emotional manner. And as she went forward to greet the preacher, I remember saying, I want that. I want that. And so I did just go to Christ at that point as a little child, and that was my profession. I want that. I did have more conversation about that as an adult later. But that's how it began. Yeah.
That's awesome. You know, it's so pure and so simple. There's beauty in that. Okay, so as you get married and you recognize I'm a Christian and my spouse is not, how did that dynamic create difficulty in your life?
Well, one of the things I noticed was that he would not have remorse over things that were clear to me that were not right. Um, Sometimes not moral. Um, and I just knew things were never going to be good if we continued down that road.
Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
So in the previous episode, Victor, welcome.
Thank you.
We did reveal that your first husband was an alcoholic.
Yes.
And how did that play out?
Well, first of all, I didn't realize he was an alcoholic. I was very young when we got married, very, very young. My parents didn't drink. They were kind of antisocial type folks, so we didn't have lots of exposure to other lifestyles. And when I began my relationship with my ex-husband, I just thought he was having fun. You know,
Okay.
it just looked like fun to me to begin with.
Right. Okay. So as things did not go well, at what point what were the things that led up to you saying, no more, I can't continue
Well,
living with this man and being his wife?
By the time we reached the 8-year mark, there were many incidences, of course. And I could see by living in proximity to his parents and the way that he grew up is the way that he learned from them. Um, I literally woke up one day and I thought, I cannot take my children down this road any farther. This is not a healthy situation.
So the things they were seeing were harmful
Yes.
to them.
Yes. Yes. And there wasn't violence in our relationship, but there was emotional abuse and, like I said, no remorse for anything that was going on. And so, how can you have any type of relationship be good if there isn't remorse for the bad, I guess we could say.
There's not really any resolution.
No.
Right?
Yeah, yeah. So, I determined at that point then to leave the marriage. Yeah.
Did you have fallout among his family, your family, like extended family issues because of your decision?
Yes. Yes. I was very naive in those days. My mother-in-law came to me once and said, you know, I hope you would not keep my grandchildren from me. And I said, I would never do that. And yet there was never, ever a phone call after that for her wanting to see the children. So that sort of, not sort of, it stymied me and confused me. There was that type of fallout. I did not have any fallout from my friends because I think they basically thought, what took you so long? Probably. Yeah.
And culturally, I know divorce did not happen as often I'm assuming that was that in the 70s?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's a
Mid
little
70s,
less
yes.
familiar in this area, but I don't know in California if culturally it was more acceptable, I guess is actually what I'm asking.
It probably was to some degree by that time. Most families I knew, though, had mothers and fathers, unlike today, in the home. Yeah, so that was different. That was very different.
So you meet Victor. Tell us how this guy rode in on his horse.
Well, I first met Victor in a restaurant in California. He had been on vacation to Tennessee, and he told me that he had one last day before he had to go back to work. So he was literally just leisurely, I guess we would call it loafing out here in the South. And so he came in to drink coffee, have some breakfast, and read the newspaper. And so he was standing in a line to wait. And California's a bit different than here. Southern folks are a lot more polite and also patient than where I grew up in California. And so he stood there and he stood there and he stood there. And I'm watching from my perch at a counter. I had an hour to kill between work and a class that I was taking at the junior college. And so I had come in to drink tea and just hang around because I didn't want to pay the toll to go back home for an hour and then come back across the bridge again. So anyway, he probably stood there for 10 minutes. And I thought to myself, this guy is really different. And so I went back to my tea, and pretty soon he came over and sat beside me, and he proceeded to read his newspaper. And also, unlike maybe Southern women, I simply was a little more forward. And I said, would you mind if I read that section of your paper? And so we started a conversation. And that was the beginning. Yeah.
Wow. That's a neat meeting story.
Yeah.
I would imagine that's
And Victor
fairly
likes me
unusual.
to fess up to, by the end of the conversation, I asked him for his phone number.
I love that. That's very cute. So you didn't have to pursue her quite so well. You just had your armor shined up, and
I just followed the lead and started talking with her on the phone. This is her story, not mine. But one of the things I knew she was different because I never ever liked to talk on the phone. I met PJ and we're talking on the phone for like an hour. So that was like, oh, this is different. So yes, it was a very divine appointment, I think.
And we actually talked on the phone for about 3 weeks before we went on a date because I don't know how long we would have talked had I not finally, after about 3 weeks, I said to him, would you like to go out on a date? Would you want to go have coffee or something? And he mumbled around a little bit and he finally said, my car's broken down. And I said, well, I have a car. So not only did I ask him for his phone number, but I went and picked him up on our first date too.
That's great. That's great. So within that 3 weeks of talking on the phone, did you all discuss faith? Was that a topic of importance to you at that place in your life?
I cannot remember a thing we talked about. Do you?
No, I just knew that we were talking a long time and seemingly about nothing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But no, as far as I remember, we didn't talk about faith for quite a while.
And I don't remember, to be honest. I don't know.
So things progress. You continue dating, and he's accepting of you having 2 little girls.
Yeah. Well, I did want to back up just a second. By the time I met Victor, I had been single for quite a while, and I had dated enough that I was sick of that, and I didn't like dating. And I had decided if I could find like a monastery or something that would take a nun with children, that's what I was going to do. So then when I met Victor, he sort of snuck up on me a little bit because he was very different. I could say now that he was raised right. He was raised to be a gentleman, and he was. And he was very kind. And the first time he came to the door, he brought
Valentine's heart.
Valentine hearts to my children.
Oh.
So it was Valentine's Day, I think. And that's how we started. I'm sorry, I forgot what you said the question was.
No, that's great. So he got to know your girls, and if you brought me sugar as a kid in a candy, that was the way to my heart for sure.
Yeah. It was kind of touch and go at first. Our first date was our first day with me cooking a supper for him included my children.
Mm.
And so when he came that day, we had a whole plethora of disastrous little moments that happened, and including my cat that was in heat jumping on this little table that I had all the food on, knocking it down. And when the table went down, the cat went up into the curtains, pulled the curtains down. That sort of, many things like that. And when the evening was over, we walked Victor to the door. And Lori's holding my hand, and she turns to me after I close the door. She says, "Oh, I like him." And I said, "Well, he'll never be back."
You'll never see him again.
So that was kind of interesting. Yeah.
Great. Mm-hmm. That's a great story, because I can see all this happening, of course. Mm-hmm. So you all get married after dating for how long?
A year.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you jump in, and things were good at first, or not as expected?
I didn't recognize that my husband was a closet drinker. I mean, a closet alcoholic, I should say.
Okay.
At that point, we both were drinking casually.
Okay.
I thought that's what we were doing. And his alcoholism looked different than my first husband.
Okay.
So I didn't recognize it in the very beginning.
What did it look like?
Well, when things started going south, I did notice that he would call me frequently from his work and tell me the traffic is really bad. I don't think I want to sit on the bridge. I think it should let up in about half an hour or so. Well, I didn't know immediately, but I figured it out pretty quickly that he was going to a bar before he came home. Okay. That sort of thing. So that happened a lot. Okay.
A lot.
Yeah. And
so you were functioning, though. You were going to work.
Yes.
And then
Yes, he was functioning. Yeah. So more things like that started happening, and it became pretty clear after a little while that there was much more than I thought happening. Yeah.
Were, other than the drinking, were things okay with you, or did that create worries and fears from your past? Did it create?
Oh yes, it definitely
arguments.
Definitely created worries and fears from my past. Yeah, for sure. At some point when we were coming to the end of Victor's drinking, I remember saying to him, "I've done this once before, and I don't want to, but I can leave this relationship if you don't stop." What I didn't know at the time was alcoholism is an illness. It isn't something you choose to do, or Nobody wakes up and says, I want to be an alcoholic today. That's my desire for life. Nobody does that. And so I can honestly say today that I know that my husband's mind and heart was, yes, I don't want to do that anymore. But he did continue for a while.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, what was the point at which you said, this is the part where I am going to stop being the wife of an alcoholic, and I've got needs that need to be met. I've got children who need to be cared for. What happened? What are the pieces that led you to the place?
Well, first of all, I never did or leave our relationship physically. And God allows a lot of things to happen for our good, even though it doesn't look good at the time. And one of the things that I'm referring to is that financially, at that point, I wouldn't be able to continue my lifestyle if I left my husband's paycheck. We'll
Okay.
just say it that way.
Sure.
And that was one reality. So that made me really dig into, well, what do I do now?
Right.
What do I do now? I think that by that time we were in church, I think. I think we
Yes,
were
we
in
were.
church at that point. And so,
So you had enough
yes,
fortitude to say, we need some correction, we need some help. And
yes.
so were you
yes.
involved in like getting to know people in the church, or were you
Oh,
just
yes. Yes, I had forgotten that we were very involved in our church in California. And as a matter of fact, we had a community group that the leaders in that group were so wonderful.
Mhm.
They took us under their wings and truly helped us make decisions. And Ernie Schultz was a wonderful man. And I said somewhere along the line, I don't know what to do. I can't make a decision. And so at some point, they helped us. They helped me make a decision to not make a decision about whether leaving or staying in my marriage for 6 months. And so we lived out that 6 months. And in that period, Victor was really had made the turn. He was trying to make a difference in his own life and make things better. And so the 6 months had come around, but I was still so injured that I decided that I still couldn't make a decision. So I put my decision off another 6 months. And so during that time, I remember going to Ernie Schultz and saying to him, I think it might be a good idea if Victor and I lived apart for a little while, take a break. And he talked me out of that. To his credit, he talked me out of that. And I know it was really hard for Victor to live in a house with a wife who would, when he would come into the room, I would leave the room and go to another room. And that went on for a couple of years, probably.
This was after my big blow up, after 4 years of being sober, after that event I talked about. So this is where we were trying to keep it together. And God was gracious by sending people into our lives, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, what I could see, even though I couldn't make a decision at the time, what I could see was the difference between my first marriage and my second marriage. I knew there was huge things that were different for the good, even though there was bad things happening.
That's great.
And what I know now is that was because my husband had the Holy Spirit, and my first husband did not. And so that was that goes back to God says be equally yoked because, you know, he loves us and he wants us to have a good life, you know.
There's so many words of wisdom in that. Wisdom to take counsel, but wisdom to give counsel. You know, I think a lot of times we look at people's situation and you just go, wow, that's a mess. We're not called to just say, oh, I see the mess they're in. We can speak truth. We can speak life into relationships.
Yes.
We can,
Yes.
and sometimes it just is a little bit of just coming alongside of them and saying, I care about you. What can I pray for you today?
Yeah.
It might open the door for you to get more than you bargained for, but at the same time, that's what we're supposed to be doing. That's where we're called, right?
Yes.
And just, I know he did not think that was a sacrifice to come into your life and to give you words of wisdom, but
Right.
it changed the trajectory of your life.
Yes, absolutely. He even had statistics about people that decide to do what I was proposing would usually end in staying apart.
Sure. He must have, I figured he had some reason for saying no, don't take that large step of leaving.
Yes, and I had such faith in Ernie's wisdom, I guess we could say, and his spiritual background, that I listened, and I'm so glad I did, you know.
And I can also see Victor's part where he would, you know, he stopped drinking, he's stopped using, he's doing all the things that he can figure out, going to church, sitting beside my wife, doing the things, going through the motions, right? Yet we think if we have this formula and we set things up appropriately, and now I'm doing the right stuff, yet things are still falling apart. How easy it is to walk back into the place where we try to make that hurt go away. How easy it is to try to just stop trying if you're not getting the results that you want in relationship, because you can't make this person love you. You can only take care of you. Victor, will you speak to that? Like, how was it during that time that you just kept doing the right thing regardless of the results not being what you wanted?
Yes, I just knew that I did not want to go through another divorce. Our family didn't do divorce. I didn't want to go through the second divorce. So I was broken. I was humbled. Ernie came into my life. Our CG came into our life. Well, we called it a flock. We had flock groups in California. We had this flock around us, and we just kept attending the flock. We stayed in the confines of the flock. We didn't get out on the periphery. And I knew that God had a plan. And one of the things that really helped restore our marriage, I hope I can get into this, honey, not jumping on your stuff. That flock group, and we were struggled so much, and we were on the verge of divorce, and we were deciding whether to leave or not. We were in counseling, just a secular counselor, and she said that we weren't going to get past this unless we did something drastic. So she suggested we have a funeral for our marriage. A funeral for our marriage.
Okay.
And the persons who helped us with that funeral was our flock from church. And so we literally we went to Ernie and Kathy's house, and we had this like, okay, we're going to bury this white knight. We're going to get to the real man now with flaws and foibles and warts. And so we had a funeral for our first marriage. And I think it was more of a turning point it was a turning point for me, but I think it really gave PJ another restart to see me as I was, and yet still love me just as Jesus loved me as I was, even when I was messing up. He didn't like what I was doing, but his love never departed. And that's what we wanted for our marriage.
Yes.
You want to jump off on any of that?
Yes. You said that exactly correct. So we decided to date. No, we're still living in the same house, but we decided to date. So at the time, we were living and managing a residential inn in California for a local doctor. And we lived at the back of the inn. And the inn had several rooms on one side of a hallway and several rooms on the other, with a big entryway and our apartment in the very back. And at this point, our children were not there. Lori was married, and Mary was off in another state doing some other things. And so Victor asked me on a date. And so he went out the back door, out our door, got in his vehicle, went somewhere for a while, and when he had gone to clean his truck, because the people that know and love my husband know that he's not very neat in his vehicle, and I'm the cleaner person, and so that tended to bother me some. So he went to clean his truck, and he parked at the front of the inn and rang the bell. And when I went to the door, he was there with flowers, and we went out on our first date in our new marriage, which was a very good thing. Yeah.
What a great way to say, I am cleaning this mess up. I am starting over, and I'm going to treat you the way you deserve to be treated. I'm sure the contrast from the funeral to that was a good visual representation of
It was
exactly what was happening.
Yes, I could feel the death of that marriage right down to my toes, and it was a good thing. It was a good thing.
I appreciate that, because often people think, if this is the worst thing going on in my life, if I could get this ended, everything will be better. And that is a lie, because it is hard. I have friends who 10 years later are still struggling with some of the same difficulties from previous relationships of marriage. And, just yesterday I talked to a friend who said, you would think that by now this would be over and we wouldn't be having this same situation come up. But it's 10 years. You don't stop the things from previous marriages like you think is going to be. So sometimes it's better to do the work, to clean up the truck and bring the roses. Sometimes, and with God helping, those are the more beautiful, more fulfilling results.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So I love that one of the first times that I met you, we were talking about planning an event here at the church. I don't know if you remember this or not, but you said, well, I can't meet you on Thursday because I have a date with my husband. And I thought, she lives in the same house with her husband with no kids, and we need to plan this, and you have a date. Okay. But what I learned from that is the value that you place on your relationship with him, and that comes above other things that you have committed yourself to. You first have committed to him. And I learned right off the bat where your priorities lie and who you love, and that this is important. You're going to live that out.
Yes, yes, that's true.
So, tell us more about once you have been courting again, the good Southern
Good
word.
Southern word, yeah.
Then when do you go, okay, we're together. We're not looking back going, what if? And is this going to work? Like, was there a definitive place, or did you just look back and go, you know what, this has been working for 6 months. Maybe we've figured some things out.
Well, for me, I could see that things were better, and I felt like the Holy Spirit was telling me this was a good thing. But in my humanity, I was afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And so I literally made a decision that I was going to be married to Victor Tucker. And so I told him that. And then I got cold feet. And I can so distinctly remember my husband sitting in a chair rolling his eyes, because I think he's literally rolling
Long
his
enough.
eyes, because it's like, yeah, he didn't say the words, but the words were, how long do we have to do this?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So that did make me kind of snap out of it, and the rolling of the eyes might have been a rude gesture, and he didn't do that very often. So I knew it was a big deal in his mind. And so I just had to make a decision and, start.
And I'm hearing that you chose not to live in that fear.
Yes.
Because you could have held on to that.
Yes.
I've been hurt before.
Yes.
And I'm not going to let you in again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to be the person and I'm going to that you think that I'm going to be, and I'm not going to be your punching bag, and I'm going to stand up for myself, and I'm going to punish you for as long as I want to.
No, I didn't want to do that. I knew that wasn't fun.
It isn't, right?
no.
When you have the Holy Spirit in you,
No.
like speaking to you every single time that you're like, oh, I got him. I
Right.
hit them with a zinger.
And that would be so immature on my part, and definitely I wouldn't be paying attention to what God was saying to me. However, having said all that, it doesn't mean that sometimes the fear would crop up in just wild things, like, okay, one day he doesn't come home at exactly 5:15. Where is he?
Mm-hmm.
Is he at a bar
Sure.
again? Something like that. And I had to work a lot on that.
Thank you.
And also, I've had situations, I can remember a situation, but I can't remember the details. So I hope this makes sense. I became very upset with Victor. And it hasn't been all that long ago, maybe in the last 5 to 10 years. And I didn't talk to him for 2 or 3 days, and I don't normally do that either. And it took me that long to process that what he did was so minuscule of anything, that it was me reverting back to the first marriage after all of these years, understanding that minuscule thing would have been a big deal in the first marriage. But Victor really had done nothing. It was just me, just totally me. And so I've had to work on that. And when I say I've had to work on that, I've had to listen to the Holy Spirit's prompting.
So you're saying after 35 years of marriage with this man, you then had a moment where you felt angry and insecure based on something that happened previously.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that. It takes a lot of maturity to see it,
It
even
did,
if it took
yeah.
you 2 days to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. It
but
didn't take me that long. 2 or 3, maybe.
that's so big because I think sometimes those things happen in our life and they reoccur. We don't take the time to figure out where that came from
Yeah.
and how to stop it. And then that person just has to endure it. And how dare we, right?
Yes, yes. And I did have to apologize because I knew it wasn't his fault. And I didn't want him to go into eternity wondering, what did I do on January 16th, 19, whatever.
And I know you had mentioned previously to me that you had done marriage counseling. Was it through a counselor or maybe through your personal work with a counselor that helped you recognize where you were?
Yes, we did all of that. We went to a secular counselor some, and as an individual and together. And at some point, I think it was me that said, Victor, this man doesn't think the way we do as far as Christianity goes. So I'm sitting here paying money to somebody that I don't really trust with my life, my life decisions. So at that point, we did get a Christian counselor for a while that we paid for, and then we also did other things. Let's see. We had some counseling with the girls when
We did family counseling because we know we needed to repair some of the damage that they had been privy to. And by damage, I don't mean fighting and fussing all the time, but just that aloofness, that coldness, that inability to be real.
And I think I should say right here, children know things are happening. They might not know what's happening, but they know something is happening. And that brings a memory to mind. My adult daughter, Lori, who I happened to be in the car with for 2 or 3 hours once during the time frame that Victor and I were going through all of these counseling things and having all these problems. I had got some advice from the counselor at that point to tell our children what was going on. And what he had said to me was, children do know something's wrong. He said, I would challenge you to find any child that doesn't know something's wrong in their family. And he said, what they don't understand is it's not their fault. And they need to know what you're doing about it. That you're working on it. So anyway, I had Lori at my mercy in the car, and she was in her early 20s and was a mother of her on her own. And I finally worked up the courage to tell her, I said, Victor and I have been having some problems. And she looked at me like, yeah. And and I said to her, I just want you to know that we are working on that. And that I believe that we're going to be okay, that we're working on that. And she just kind of crumpled in the seat. And she said, oh, thank God, thank God,
She had been holding that stress.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, Victor alluded to that he wasn't a good dad. My children love him very much, and he has stood in the gap. So it was a big deal for us to be well again. And she needed to know that, she needed to know. So I do highly recommend that if you're in these situations and you can see that your children know something's going on, please give them some encouragement. Yeah.
Good. And sometimes parents are just floundering and don't know what's going to happen, so they just say, well, we're not going to even discuss this with the kids.
Yeah.
But just sometimes opening the door to be that it's okay to talk about. It's not all a big secret. Sometimes that is just helpful in restoring trust within each other.
Age
Absolutely.
appropriateness in mind.
Of course, and
Yes.
they don't need to know the gory details.
No.
There's no reason for that. But, yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that you brought up your daughter. I know that they saw a lot of things when they were growing up, and alcoholism was common in their
Yes.
home.
Yes. Yeah.
So, would you like to share with us what happened with your daughters as they began drinking and doing drugs?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Victor had mentioned our daughter Mary. She, uh, as a teenager, she very much struggled with the new marriage to begin with. She told us later that she felt like she was being disloyal to her father, and to her, her biological dad. And so she had to come to her own grips with that, I guess you could say. And at that point, when she began really acting out, we were in church at the time, but she was rejecting all of that. And so she found a way to medicate her feelings, her thoughts. And, in hindsight, I can say, we should have done this or that. But sitting here today, I don't know that anything would have changed, or and had it not, would she be in the place that she's in now, which is a very good, healthy relationship with Christ. And she's raised her children with Christ. Thank you, Jesus, for that. So now Lori, I think Lori had a different reaction. She obviously had to have struggled some in her childhood, but I think she stuffed it. And she now, it's all come out. And so she's now fallen into the same pit of addiction that the rest of our family, has had problems with. And so, first thing she did was marry a man who was an alcoholic. And apparently, that is a very common thing to do when is to follow along the same lines.
It's familiar.
Yes,
Even if it's
familiar.
not good, it's
Yes,
familiar.
exactly. So after she had 3 children and literally trying to hold her life together, all by herself, I remember having a conversation with her about her husband, whom she's divorced from now, being the man who takes care of blah, blah, blah. And she stopped me in great anger, and she's, "Oh, no, Mom, I do it. I do everything." And so I recognized there was a huge problem, obviously. But anyway, she just fell apart. And so
We're estranged now, have been estranged for quite a while.
yes,
And
and
she's still inactive.
Mm-hmm.
yes, she is. And it's so interesting, though, that she didn't do any of that uh, until her youngest child was a teenager, young teenager.
Yeah.
So, I couldn't possibly understand all of her, story.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I do hold out for hope that God has not finished with her either. So,
One of the prayers we prayed, Janelle, we prayed for Mary. This same prayer, we pray it for Lori. Mary has a success story. We're waiting for Lori's success story to be finished. And so in those really times, we realized we just had to pray. The best thing we could do is pray, and Jesus is going to have to do the work. God's going to have to do our work. So we started praying this prayer. God, please break their spirit, but save their life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really, really scary prayer to pray, but that's where
Yeah.
we had to get to. And that's where we're at with Lori now.
Mm-hmm.
Break the rebellious spirit, save her life.
Mm-hmm.
That's a wonderful prayer, because I think sometimes parents don't know where to go. Like they don't know even how to pray, because it's so scary. You know, it is life and death.
Mm-hmm.
So give us hope. How many years was Mary in an addiction and living a life where you were fearful every day?
Yeah.
At least 10.
Wow.
At least 10 from the time she was a teenager until she was, oh yeah, at least 10, maybe
Yeah.
closer to 15.
Well, she had 4 years of sobriety, we'll call it that, and then she had a 10-year relapse.
Yeah,
And that
that's
was the
right.
10 years that she was in the wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
So 10 years. And she would call home sometime, and sometimes she would call home just to twist the knife a little bit further, like,
Yeah, it's
Blame.
part of a addiction. People that are actively in addiction, most of the time can't face their own demons, so they choose to blame other people. And it's pretty common to blame parents.
And anger is
Yeah.
just right
Mhm.
under the surface.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty common.
So, with this walk, you have been able to help so many people. And I just want to point out that you've had a ministry called the Prodigal Ministry. And I think so many times, like I said, parents don't know how to pray. They don't. It's so scary. How do you walk every day? How do you not fall into your own depression and walk back into substance abuse when you are hurting because of what this other person, this child of yours, is doing? Will you speak to that day to day? Like how do you get up and do it, and how did you get out of bed?
I think I had to recognize that I couldn't do this alone. Um, that it's not possible because Satan whispers, all the negatives on a regular basis. And so it's so important to have Christian friends to that know what's going on in your life, that can listen, just listen. I've had several groups of women that have supported me over the years at different stages. Some when Mary was out in her wilderness area, and then now others as Lori is in there. Um, and I have a very good friend who lives in another state now, but she recognized that I was shutting down when it came to Mary. And so she came to me one day and she said, PJ, I just want you to know. I'm sorry. I'm so emotional. She just said, I just want you to know that I'm praying for her when you can't. And that meant the world to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
What support, for her to speak on your behalf to Jesus.
Yes, and I also know that there are friends that you can have that can be really good friends, but they may not have any inkling as to what your shoes feel like. And they may not be the ones that you go to with those deep problems. And that's okay. That's really okay. But it's so important to reach out and have the ones that can do that. I also have another friend who she has had many, many, many terrible things happen in her family. And she's the one that can listen to all the down and dirty stuff and then just tell me the truth. Or, she'll say something like, okay, that's how you feel, but that doesn't mean that's going to happen. You know, and I can respect her because I know she knows where I'm at,
Right.
that sort of thing. So it's very important to have Christian friends that can help.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I hear you say community, people you trust,
Yes.
and authenticity.
Yes. I did want to say that when we've had our last group that we facilitated was the prodigal group, and that was for family members or friends that had family members or friends that were far away from God, either and yourself maybe. So it was a support group that we met initially once a week, and then a little bit spaced out a little bit farther. But we met for 3 months or 3 years. 3 years.
3 years.
Wow.
And to this day, some of those folks will come out of the woodwork around the corner and pull me into a corner and say, I just want to tell you what happened, and see what you think about that. So it just confirms to me over and over that, we need Jesus with skin on, so.
So they're saying things that are praises of things that have happened, or they are just deep
Both.
hurts.
Both.
Okay.
Both. And it's so exciting to hear the praises, of course.
Sure.
Yeah. But it's also good for the other folks to know that someone's praying for them.
Yes, and that someone else is not listening to just get another juicy detail.
Right,
Let me know
exactly.
what happened in that situation.
Right.
That's horrible. I can't wait to tell my friends. You're walking with them and you're hurting with them and you have compassionate because you hate that they saw the same things you did.
Exactly. There's also the effect that your group might consist of somebody who has greater knowledge than you do about whatever situation you're in that might be able to help you.
Yeah.
Such as, just very briefly, I'll tell you that in our group we had a former employee of a police department, we'll say. And so they were able to help another person who had a situation with their child in jail.
Yeah.
And, with things that they should do or not do and that sort of thing. So you never know who your friends are going to be until you reach out.
Right. And God places those people in our lives.
Exactly. And it's not a
At the right
mistake.
time.
It's definitely not a mistake.
That's right.
It's providence.
It is.
Yes.
Thank you, PJ, for sharing your heart and this hard stuff. But this is what we want to do, is to be able to let people that we know that we've hurt, we've walked these hard roads. It has not been beautiful every single day, and you've had things that have sharpened you and have made you this beautiful person in Christ. But it has been some mud puddles along the way that you've had to traipse through, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Victor and PJ, for sharing your story for His glory.
Absolutely.
If you or someone that you know would like to know how to have a relationship with Jesus, go to our website at yourstoryhisglorypodcast.com. Up in the right-hand corner, there's a menu box. Click on that and you'll see episodes and the gospel. Click on the gospel and you'll get a wonderful message from Mike Underwood explaining to you how you can come to know God and walk faithfully with Him. Thank you.